Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another segment of Asaph Cafe. And as you can see, once again, through the magic of green screen technology, it's 11:51. Mm-hmm. We are in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. And there's Mr. Rogers in the background, and there's King Friday right there, and on the left of the screen next to me, and that's King Friday's kingdom right there, his little kingdom. And we had the trolley car there, but I think you can't hardly see it on this image here, but this is about the closest we can get. And Mr. Rogers always wore a sweater. So I have my little Mr. Rogers sweater. Yeah. So we're going to have fun. You want to start us off, Emmett?
Heavenly Father, bless our food and time together in Jesus' name.
All right, and now let me introduce the guests. I am Asaph Adonai, your host. There's King Friday on my on my right there. I mean on my left. And then of course there's Mr. Rogers, and our special guest, Mr. Briar Hill, and he's associated here with his MCAT studio. He does interning work, right?
Yep.
It's interning work. And then affectionately our aging rocker Emmett. So we're on Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, and this was the theme song. I don't know if you know this or not. You recognize it?
It's not ringing a bell right now, no.
Now, these are the lyrics here. Let me read it to you. It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for a beauty. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. That's the second line. So let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please? Won't you please? Please, won't you be my neighbor? And then he'd say, hi, television neighbor.
Yeah.
And we're glad you're here. Glad we're together again, and so on. And it would start the whole episode here. And let's interview you for a little moment. Where are you from?
I'm from a small town outside of Great Falls.
Great Falls?
Yep.
Okay, and how long have you been in Missoula?
This is my second year here. I'm a sophomore at the university here.
And what are you studying?
Media arts.
Media art. Oh, this is perfect.
Yep, it's right up my alley.
Well, just think 5 years from now, you could say you were on Asaph Cafe with Mr. Rogers. So, let's see. Do you have any brothers and sisters?
Yep, I have two brothers. One's 17, one's 5.
Okay, so you're the oldest, obviously. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I'm the oldest of 3 too. And Emmett, if you think of some questions for Brian, you can ask him too. And what made you choose the university here? How did you know about this?
I've always been a Grizz fan and just
excellent.
Kind of wanted to come here forever. So.
You think you'll ever be a mascot like Monty one day?
Oh no, I can't do flips and stuff like that.
Neither can I. I'm too old to be trying that now. Oh, that's neat. And I guess you like it here in Missoula, right?
Yep, I love it here.
You have any hobbies and interests and things?
I like to take pictures and really into photography and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Have you? Do you have any photography pictures out anywhere?
Just like on my Instagram.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of pictures do you normally take?
Just like wildlife sceneries, that kind of thing.
Beautiful.
Excellent.
What kind of music do you like?
Oh, all sorts of stuff. Just depends on what kind of mood I'm in.
Have you ever heard of a beautiful Asaph and I are huge fans of a genre that's kind of been forgotten. It's called easy listening. The king of easy listening was Lawrence Welk, the music maestro, and this is a song of easy listening. That guy's in love with you, and it used to be played on radio stations. This kind of music, this kind of pantomime, maybe some violins and an orchestra. I could listen to that all day.
Well, you probably won't know this song here.
Probably.
It's called This Guy's in Love with You. It fits in that easy listening category. We'll get some modern stuff in a moment for this young man. never heard this song before, huh?
Mm-mm.
Well, this goes way before your time. Way before.
Sure. Do you have the sheet music, or you just?
Oh, I've got it memorized.
It's pretty cool.
I've been doing it since I was like 10. So
Really?
wow, yeah, after a while it just becomes like second nature.
You mean, I did not know, so you've been playing this song, This Guy's in Love with You since age 10?
Well, not this song, I mean
Okay,
piano.
okay then. Yeah. I love easy listening.
It's a pretty cool song.
Thank heavens on channel 947 if you get cable, charter.
Okay, look.
They got the easy listening station 24 hours a day.
Okay, now we got Briar sitting here with a bunch of old geezers here.
Yeah.
What kind of movies you like?
It depends, like, too, like what I'm feeling, but I usually lean towards like adventure, kind of action type of movies.
Okay, I see. Let me turn this down a little bit. Now, did you see the new Star Trek that just came out a couple weeks
I don't think
ago?
I have yet. No.
It's the CBS one.
Okay,
well, it's on. I think it's on stream now. But they
Yeah.
showed the actual pilot on television.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It's the new Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are you familiar with Star Trek at all?
Yeah, I've seen the movies back.
What about the
a while
television
back.
series? Are you?
I don't know the television series.
Oh, they're fascinating. You don't know what you're
Okay.
missing.
Star Trek started in the mid '60s, just a television series,
Mhm.
and it was only on for something like 3 seasons, and it had a kind of a very slow start.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they put it in syndication for reruns, it started getting popular,
Yes.
and it started reaching more people.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, it went on to spawn like 10 Star Trek
Mhm.
movies. And the first one was
Star Trek the Motion Picture.
Is there books too?
Tons.
Yeah.
Tons of Star Trek
Books.
books.
Probably, video games.
Mhm.
Video games, I should say.
It's a whole universe.
Records,
Yeah.
puzzles,
Right.
toys, games, what else? There was even a cartoon series. A lot of toys, puzzles, games, even records, old records of Star Trek Adventures on the record player, and that kind of amazing franchise.
Yeah, but Star Trek is 50 years old. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
You weren't even a doctor.
That wasn't even a thought.
You were, yeah.
But anyway, I'm just trying to break it down so you can get an idea. It was popular in the 60s, the mid 60s, the television
Mhm.
series, and eventually it became a movie. The first movie was the motion picture.
Mhm.
The second one was the Wrath of Khan.
Yes.
Then did you see that one? Did you see that one?
I don't know the titles of the ones I've seen.
We'll talk about
It's
the
been a
movies, not the
while.
television show. We're just
Oh,
talking about
okay.
the movies. The first one was the motion picture, which
Uh-huh.
was based on the television show.
Yeah, that's still my favorite.
Yeah, and then the second one was the Wrath of Khan. Khan was a character in the original Star Trek television show.
Mhm.
And see, what happened was Khan was a genetic person that was created.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Him and his people,
Yes.
and they had superhuman strength,
Mhm.
really superhuman strength, but they were bad.
Mhm.
Okay.
So they didn't use their strength for good, for
Mhm.
humanity. They started taking over the Earth.
Mhm.
At that time in the 1990s, it's science fiction.
Yeah.
And so nobody could stop them because they were just too strong. They
Mhm.
had like about 100 of those guys
Yes.
that followed Khan. So naturally, they put themselves in cryogenics, and they're frozen for like 2 centuries. Because what happened was when they lost their rule originally,
Mhm.
you know how bad guys get in trouble and they have
Yes.
to stand trial?
Mhm.
They escape and they put themselves in cryogenics. So they're like frozen for 200 years. So then by the time Captain Kirk finds the old ship, they revive these people and then they start doing the same bad stuff
Oh,
they
man.
did 200 years earlier. But this time they were dealing with people from the future. So it was
So that
harder for
leveled the
these-
playing field.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
they leveled the playing field more. And so, of course, Khan takes over the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Nearly kills Captain Kirk.
Uh-huh.
Nearly kills the crew.
Yeah.
Tries to take over Starfleet. You know how the
Oh, yeah,
bad guys
exactly.
are. He's trying to take over everything. But, of course, Kirk saves the day. This
Yeah.
is Captain Kirk. He defeats Khan. And so for punishment, they exile him on City Alpha
Yeah.
5,
Yeah.
this planet. It's just this barren planet. And Captain Kirk says, you want to take over? Okay, you can take over this
Yeah.
planet here. Good luck to you. And it was nothing there. They had to plant their food.
Yeah.
And so then they had these creatures on this planet. They were like these
Mhm.
armadillo-looking
Yeah,
creatures.
yeah.
And they had this thing inside of that when they get in your ear, they
Yeah.
take over your mind.
That was in Star Trek too. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about the planet first, before the movie.
Oh.
You know, the planet when he was exiled. And Captain Kirk was supposed to check on those people
Yes.
to see their progress, but he neglected to do
Yeah.
that. He
Yeah.
just abandons them on that planet, let them fend for themselves. They had to plant their food. They had to deal with those armadillo creatures.
Yes.
And one of the creatures kills Khan's wife.
Yes.
So that ticks off his madness anymore. He's like, I have to get off this planet. I'm gonna get that Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
So they were exiled on this planet. They were suffering. It was cold, windy, and they couldn't see. And so finally, Captain Kirk becomes an admiral. So he's not like riding around the universe anymore. He's just kind of in Starfleet, right? They're sending younger people out there. So one of the younger captains, they go to City Alpha 5 by mistake. They were supposed to go to City Alpha 6.
Yeah.
Oops.
But they go to City Alpha 5, not knowing about Khan because it's the next generation of
Yep.
people. Khan sees that ship, and what does he do? He takes over that ship, and he takes over that captain, and they put those little things in that captain's ear. And so Khan takes control of their mind and forces them to do everything Khan wants, and Khan's like, get me and my people off this planet. So the captain complies, and they get off that planet, and then Khan takes and leaves them behind. That captain, all the people
that he
on
was
that ship,
controlling.
all the people that he forced to get his people off the planet, and then he leaves them stuck on there, and so Khan has a free ship. And the first thing he does is, where's James T.
Yep,
I'm
yep.
gonna get him for leaving me on this planet.
Yep.
Right? And of course, Khan doesn't know that Kirk is an admiral now. So he finds out through the captain, because when they ask questions, they have to answer it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Wonder Woman, when she gets the rope around you, you have to tell the truth no matter what. So anyway, Khan takes over control of that ship. I can't remember the name of the ship.
I don't remember that.
Reliant. It was called the Reliant.
That's it.
The USS Reliant. And so, of course, Reliant's not following its flight plan, so Starfleet gets curious. They send Captain Kirk to find out what's going on with the ship, and that's when the confrontation starts. Because since they're all friends, Kirk doesn't put his shields up, right? So Khan shoots at the Enterprise and almost disables it in the first shot. And that's when Captain Kirk realizes something's wrong. And of course, Kirk psychs out Khan without knowing it's Khan. And what Captain Kirk does, or Admiral Kirk does, is he uses the controls on his ship to order the Reliant to lower their shields. And that's how Captain Kirk can shoot back.
Yes. Brilliant space war.
And so then it evens the playing field. And then Khan wanted Admiral Kirk to know who had attacked him. So he puts himself on the screen. Everybody's looking, and it's Khan. He's back. Da 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 da. And so they have this square off in space, and they go to this planet called Genesis because Captain Kirk's son had created this device called the Genesis device, and anything dead brings life. Like if they find a dead planet, they use the Genesis device, and it'll just grow vegetation and things like that.
Cool.
Yeah, it just grows all this. But when it comes in encounter with something that's alive, it kills whatever is alive to bring the new. If that makes sense. So naturally, Khan gets control of the Genesis device. He's going to try to wipe everything out, do new stuff and take over. It's the same plot line.
Yes, excellent.
Bad guys get in there, and so finally at the end, Khan kills Captain Kirk's son, which didn't sit well with Captain Kirk. And he just about wipes everybody out. He kills everybody on that crew, just about on that Reliance crew. And it was just a
Wait. It was the Klingons in the third movie that killed Captain Kirk's son.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I stand corrected. So anyway, Khan just about wipes everything out, and of course, Kirk finally figures out a way to defeat Khan. And right when Khan is dying, right, you'd think he'd want to cry out to God and say sorry.
Yeah.
He goes, I'm going to try one last time to get Captain Kirk. Captain Kirk had blew up the Reliant, and everybody's all bloodied up and everything. But see, Khan had that Genesis device. Remember I told you anything alive,
Yes.
if it comes in contact with it, it kills it?
Mm-hmm.
So what Khan does is he sets the ship on self-destruct, which will cause the Genesis device to blow up. And
Yes.
anything within that range that gets
Yeah.
in contact with it will take it out. And so Khan blows up his ship and his crew and
Yeah.
sacrifices his life to get Captain Kirk. And the rays are coming, right?
Yeah.
And Captain Kirk's like, Scotty, you got to get us out of here. We're going to all be dead.
Mhm.
And they're like TV in the movies. Right when the rays are about to get him, Scotty figures out for a way for them to escape.
Yeah.
And then the Enterprise shoots off in space like real fast, and those rays are coming after them.
Yeah.
And they just keep going warp speed till they get out of harm's way. So that was kind
That
of
sounds pretty interesting, though.
yeah, that was kind of the synopsis of number
Yeah.
2. And in the process of Scotty getting the ship to get out of
Mm-hmm.
harm's way, Spock gets killed.
Yeah.
Because Spock had to go inside this radiation room to fix everything.
Yeah.
And his body could take it for a while because he's a Vulcan.
Yeah.
Vulcans are strong. So in number 3, they go back to Starfleet, and what Spock did, he put his soul inside Dr. McCoy.
Mm-hmm.
Because Vulcan, remember science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
See, if Vulcans know they're going to die, they can transfer their souls real quick to something and keep their essence alive,
Uh-huh.
even though their body is gone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what Spock did. He goes, remember.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so then Dr. McCoy starts acting like Spock.
Mm-hmm.
It was so funny. And then they were trying to figure out what was causing Dr. McCoy to act like Spock.
Yeah.
And they thought he was losing his mind. But he wasn't. Because Spock was inside
Mhm,
McCoy.
yes.
It was like two entities in the same body.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Spock's father figures it out. He says, you got to get the entity of my son out of Dr. McCoy and
Mhm.
put it back in his body. So what happened was when they had Spock's funeral, they shot his remains on that new planet, on that new Genesis planet. And those rays caused his body to rejuvenate.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. So what happens is, we're into Star Trek, you know. So anyway, Captain Kirk has to sneak his own ship because the commander said, we're not using the Enterprise anymore, it's too old. They had all the updated ships. So Kirk sneaks his own ship, has to go back to that Genesis planet and get the remains, the body that's been
Mhm.
rejuvenated of Spock. And then they got to take Spock back to his home planet, and then they do that Vulcan ritual where they
Mhm.
take the essence and the soul of Spock out of McCoy and transfer it back to the body.
Mhm.
That's how Spock came back to life in
Mhm.
number 3. And then, of course, in Star Trek number 4, the movie 4, you haven't seen any of these movies, have you?
I feel like I've seen them.
And then in number 4, there's this probe that looks like a whale
Uh-huh.
floating through space, and it was in contact with the humpback whales
Mhm.
of the past. It's science fiction. So anyway, mankind had hunt whale for so much
Mm.
that whales were extinct. So the probe out there in space that looked like a whale was wondering why the communication was cut off. So the whale probe goes toward the planet Earth
Mm-hmm.
looking for the whales, and in the process it's destroying everything
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
for the whales. How TV is. But Kirk is on the other planet,
Yeah.
and there's a worldwide signal that says don't approach Earth because we're in trouble, we're dying, and blah blah blah,
Mhm.
right? And Kirk is on his way back to Earth. They see the message from the president, so he contacts the president real quick, says we're going to go back in time, we'll fix this.
Yes.
So what Captain Kirk does in number 4 is he goes back in time and he kidnaps 2 humpback whales, bring them
Mhm.
into the future to repopulate the species and tell that whale probe what to do.
Yeah, yeah.
It's Dr. McCoy. would-
Yeah.
So of course they go back in time, they go to San Francisco, they get the whales back.
Mhm.
Only in the movies. So then there's 2 whales in the future. They start communicating with the whale probe, and the whale probe is like happy and it leaves and everything's back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Star Trek 5 is the search for God.
Yeah, that was one of my least favorite movies. I love
Well,
the
I
secret.
saw an
Journey.
interview with
Mhm.
the actors, and they all agreed that that was pretty lame.
Yeah.
But basically, the plot line of that one, Spock has a half brother. You know how the Vulcans are always so
Mhm.
non-emotional,
Logic, yes.
and just cool and everything.
Mhm.
Well, Spock has this half brother that was disowned because he was all human and cried. You know?
Yep. He rejected the Vulcan philosophy.
Yeah, he rejects all the Vulcan philosophy, right? And so what he does, once again, he takes over the Enterprise. The bad guys always take over the Enterprise, right? So he gets Captain Kirk's ship, and he's this Vulcan. He's smarter than everybody, so he can outthink everybody, and he has emotion too, so that makes him more dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna go find God, right? So he kidnaps the ship. They go to this planet thinking it's God, right? And it was really this alien that had been trapped on this planet for eons.
Uh-huh.
And this alien wanted to get off this planet, so he pretends he's God, right? With his powers. And Captain Kirk, of course, he gets suspicious. You're not God. Why would God be on this planet here?
Yeah.
And then they had a scene where the Vulcan, Spock's brother, that the human Vulcan says, "We got a spaceship.
Yeah.
We can get you off this planet, God, and we can have you float all around space." And that made Captain Kirk suspicious, because the aliens says, "What's a starship?" Kirk says, "You're supposed to be God. Don't you know what a starship is?" You know how he just gets suspicious. And of course, the God zaps Captain Kirk, a lightning bolt in the chest, blows him back a little bit. And that made everybody get suspicious, because God doesn't go around zapping people. Yeah. Only in the movies they can think this up. And so finally, just when it looked like that alien's going to get off that planet, they figure out a way to wipe him out. They wipe out Spock's brother because he was kind of teaming up with this alien. I got a mind meld with. I got to get to know this alien, and he dies. And so, but that was that kind of flopped at the box office. Not to pick on God, it wasn't because of God.
It was just the plot.
The plot was kind of, not very good.
Yeah.
So finally, I saw an interview where the actors, they wanted to do one more movie and not let that flop be their last picture. So they made one more film called The Undiscovered Country, number 6 in it. They went out, the actors went out in a big hoorah.
Yeah, definitely.
Because in this one here, you know how the Klingons and Starfleet's always fighting? Well, finally, the Chancellor of the Klingon Empire wanted to have a peace treaty.
Yeah, because of the Klingon, the planet Klingon, whatever it was dying.
Was dying. They only had about 50 years of air left. So the Klingons decided they wanted to have a peace treaty, at least the Chancellor.
Yeah.
And that didn't sit well with some of the generals and stuff in the Klingon world, and it didn't sit well with the people in the Starfleet world either. So this is a cool plot. The admirals with Starfleet and the admirals of the Klingon Empire conspired together to stop this peace treaty. So they were pretending to be friends when they really weren't. And they were trying to figure out how to kill each other while they were alliance and stop the peace treaty. Isn't that a cool plot line?
Yeah.
And so what they had to do is they had to get Captain Kirk out of the way, since he's the one that saves everything. So they framed Kirk for murder. They framed Dr. McCoy for murder. They sent him off to a penal colony where they crack rock. Just to get them out of the way, right? And then, while the two organizations are pretending to be friends, they're sitting up there trying to kill each other while they're pretending to be friends and stop the peace treaty at the same time. So then what happens is the president of Starfleet, he thinks this peace treaty is for real. He doesn't realize he's being set up. They had an assassin waiting for him. And the assassin puts on this Klingon outfit so that when he shoots the president, everybody thinks the Klingons did it instead of Starfleet. And it just escalates the war. So what happens is Captain Kirk gets off he escapes from that penal colony, and he goes back to that peace treaty and rights all that wrong, and they figure out everything. So those are the basic plot lines of the 6 Star Trek films.
Is it like Star Wars then? And then some of the movies
some of
are better?
Some of it,
maybe not quite as intense as Star Wars, but they had some really good
space battle. The thing is, the idea of Star Trek was the Enterprise. It was to explore outer space. New worlds, new planets, new civilizations. If you and I were in a spaceship going out from the planet Earth to explore new planets. We didn't even know what we were doing out there half the time. Some of it didn't explore, but that's an adventure. So it wasn't just Star Wars battle, but they had an armaments, and if they had to fight, they would, Do
you know this? I'll do it again. See if you know this song.
I think I know this one. I don't know the name or anything, but
I'll give you a hint. Dr. Smith. I'm gonna do it again. Recognize?
I recognize the song, but
And here's the conclusion. I'll do it again. Recognize it?
I don't know the name.
That's the theme to Lost in Space.
Uh-huh.
With the robot, Will Robinson, Dr. Smith. That's probably before your time, but they made a movie. They made a movie based on that too, which was probably before your time too. And let's talk about that. The synopsis of Lost in Space.
Oh, yeah,
Have you
go
ever
ahead.
seen Lost in Space?
I haven't,
The television
no.
show, the original. Did you see the movie with William Hurt?
No.
Okay, basically, they're always in the 1990s in these.
I know.
It seems
In
strange
the
that they're in
50s,
the
60s,
90s.
yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it's like 1990ish. I forget exactly, or like whatever. And the Robinson family. It's like the novel Swiss Family Robinson. Are you familiar with that? That novel.
That sounds familiar, but
Okay, and they're always the Robinsons on these movies. But
Yeah.
anyway, they got the Robinson family. Their mission was to go to a planet called Alpha Centauri and colonize that planet to not repopulate, but because the Earth was too crowded. So, what the NASA or whatever they call it, I don't remember the name of
Yeah,
it.
nor do I, yeah.
But they put them in a frozen state inside a spaceship called the Jupiter 2. And so they'll only age like 2 or 3 minutes over a 5-year period. So they were going to send them to Alpha Centauri, and then the ship would automatically unfreeze them, and they just start, vegetation
again.
and things like that, and start bringing more people from the Earth to Alpha Centauri and so on. But you know how these movies are, there's always nations that are competing. Kind of like when they had the U.S. rockets in the 60s. You heard about that? And they were competing with Russia and all that.
Yeah.
So anyway, either nations want to be the first to get a new planet or first to make a rocket or some crazy thing like that. And so one of the nations where Dr. Smith was connected, his mission was to sabotage the Jupiter 2 from going to Alpha Centauri. And they had this complex robot on the ship. So Dr. Smith programs the robot to destroy the Jupiter 2 8 hours into its flight when it lifts off, and then they'll never get there. That's a convenient way to try to abort some mission. But what happens is Dr. Smith gets trapped in the Jupiter 2 just when it's about to take off. He was like programming the robot to destroy the ship. And he took too long, and then they started doing a countdown, and the doors closed, and he just right when he gets to the door, it closes, and he gets trapped in the ship after he had programmed the robot to destroy. So Dr. Smith doesn't want to die in space, and it was funny because the ship took off. He's all alone out there in outer space in this ship, and everybody's frozen, so they're oblivious to what's going on. And he's like trying to call Earth. And of course, nobody can hear him. He sabotaged.
Did he try to
it.
reprogram the robot then?
No, he had. Well, on Earth, he reprogrammed. He programmed the robot to destroy the ship. But he sort of forgot because he was in space by himself in the ship headed for Alpha Centauri. He was trying to get back home. He's like frantic. You got to help me, Earth! Can you hear me? Earth, can you hear me? Nobody hear him, right? So then he has to confess. And here's what made him confess. Because of his weight on the ship, it caused the ship to go off course. And so he's way out in the cosmos of space, and there's these meteors coming toward the ship. It's like this meteor storm. And the ship is going through like hundreds of meteors. And he's thinking, man, I got to fix this or I got to die out here in space. And so he has to wake up the pilot. He wakes up the pilot, tells the pilot, we're stuck in this meteor storm, right? So the pilot gets him out of the meteor storm, and then he has to confess. Well, what are you doing on this ship in the first place? You're not even supposed to be on this ship. I know I got trapped on here. I was doing some last minute things. He didn't tell him he was really programming the robot. And so then they had to wake up the family. They wake up the family. And then they had to decide, should we turn this ship around and go back to Earth? Or should we go to Alpha Centauri? So they decided to go to Alpha Centauri anyway, even though they were lost. It's this great, brilliant science fiction writing. And then, of course, 8 hours into their flight, that robot wakes up. destroy.
Yeah.
And he was like this really complex robot. He had like these little lasers that come out of his claws, and so he goes up on that main floor where the control panel up, destroy, and he's like, and he hits the panel, and, and they're floating all around in space and tumbling around, and it was just what a scene. And the robot had this little power pack on the side that if you pull it out, it'll render him inoperable. But they couldn't get to it because he could hit the top of his body, could spin around, and he could like zap people. Excuse me. So Dr. Smith, abort, stop, and a robot goes, and these little rays come out, and he zaps Dr. Smith in the chest, and he's like, destroy, and he tears a hole inside the ship, and the air is sucking out. Excuse me. So they get this little metal clamp that they put in a hole to keep the oxygen in the ship, and a robot's going around wiping out the ship and wiping out control panels. So they finally get that pack off of him, and that's how the series started on Lost in Space.
How'd they end up getting the pack off of him?
Well, they had to. There was like 2 pilots on there, and of course Dr. Smith was acting good, and they had to like kind of roll around and distract the robot, and one hand would come up and grab it. Because see, the robot was smart enough to deflect people from trying to get that power pack off, and that's how they did it. And then of course they had to fix the ship, which means they had to go to this planet they'd never seen, and that's when the series starts, because then they get in all kind of weird situations when they land on this planet. And one of the weird situations was, you know how our sun goes around our solar system and the Earth goes around it in like a circle? Well, that planet, instead of going around their sun in a circle, it would do an oval orbit, see, like this. So when it's way out here, it's freezing cold, and then as it gets closer to the sun, it gets hot where the sand starts catching on fire and blowing up sparks, because it's an oval shape. And so when the Robinson family realized they were in trouble and they couldn't get that ship going, they had to take these like shields that could deflect heat, and they would have to literally get on the ground and cover themselves up because they couldn't be in the ship. It'd be way too hot, and they'd have to just tough that out. And they can see the smoke and the sand burning up on fire, and that kind of thing. But they were safe under these. It's like blankets, like these metal blankets. Like it's just the science fiction. This is such brilliant writing, and that's like how I like science fiction.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We know it's not real, but like Star Wars and all the rest, it just
it's fascinating.
Your imagination just really
it's just really fascinating. Yes,
pretty cool.
Yeah. And they had some other shows like Battlestar Galactica. I don't know if you would know.
Yeah, and guess what? It's on MeTV, but now it's on too late for me to stay up. So I'm usually in bed by 11. It's not on at 6 o'clock. Now it's on at 11 o'clock at night. And thankfully I have it all on videotape. But Battlestar Galactica was absolutely fascinating. If I had one show to pick, one science fiction show on a desert island, it'd be Battlestar Galactica.
You picked that up?
Even above Star Trek.
Now, do you have a favorite science fiction show for your time?
Mostly Star Wars, probably.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Now, how many of the Star Wars movies have you seen?
I didn't see like the first trilogy, but the ones after that.
Oh, I've seen the first trilogy. That's much better than the trilogy after that. You've got to see the other trilogy.
Yeah, it'll make more sense if you just watch the original Star Wars and then the Empire Strikes Back and then Return of the Jedi. Those were the first 3.
Are some of the other science fiction movies you talked about like Star Wars, and like do the order that you watch it in changes like the whole story?
Well, okay, Star Trek was pretty much in chronological order. Star Trek was, but Lost in Space was more just an adventure on a planet.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that would be like out of order per se. Those 2 shows, or Star Wars, Star Trek. Star Wars is kind of like out of order. But I think in order for Star Wars to make sense, you have to see the first 3 of the trilogy. You have to see The Empire Strikes Back.
And Star Wars.
I mean,
New
Star Wars,
Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi. So, but the Return of the Jedi, it's kind of like Star Trek a little bit. Darth Vader, you know his character, right? Well, yeah, you know Luke Skywalker's
Yeah.
character. Well, it turns out that Darth Vader is really Luke's father.
Yes.
Luke, I am your father. Yikes! How would you like to
Yeah.
have Darth Vader as your father?
Oh,
Would that be-
yeah.
So, but that kind of sets, I think, the pace for the rest of the Star Trek.
Yeah, Star Wars. Yeah.
movies and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I just talk about science fiction all day.
Oh, absolutely. Same here.
When Em and I were coming up, it was just science fiction.
Yeah.
In fact, the original premise of Star Trek,
Uh-huh.
it was supposed to be a Western in space.
Uh-huh.
But the producer didn't like that idea. Because, see, in that time, they had what was called Westerns in the 60s.
Yeah.
They had shows like The Rifleman. I don't know if you know these shows or not.
Was that with like
That lightning
back in
fast-
the
yeah.
John Wayne and those guys?
Yeah, they had all these Westerns. And I'm talking about not just movies, but television shows. They had shows like The Virginian. All Westerns. You probably won't know these. The Virginian. What is it? Bat Masterson. Lightning fast gunfighter. The Rifleman, Bonanza, Gunsmoke.
Yeah.
I know those two.
Oh, you do? Okay, and
Kinda.
and,
I
and
know
so
of them.
yeah, so television dominated, and everything was westerns. It was like westerns all night long and stuff, whatever your favorite was.
Yeah.
And so by the time Star Trek came on, or was introduced to NBC, and they were going to have it in space, it was supposed to be like a western space, and Gene Roddenberry's like, no, I don't like that idea. So he took his Star Trek show and just made good drama.
Yeah.
Not the westerns, not the shoot 'em up, John Wayne, bang bang, outer space thing. That wouldn't have worked. And Gene Roddenberry was doing integration because at that time Hollywood was kind of segregated. If you ever really watch those movies, like you look at those William Holden, John Wayne movies, or those Godzilla movies, it was like people of color, like Asians, and they were like always second backseat citizens in those movies. And I don't mean that critically. And so when Gene Roddenberry created Star Trek, he said, "Hey, let's integrate. Let's get like some Russians and some African American and
Just make it everybody.
Asian and get this intermixing thing going." See, so he was kind of instrumental for starting that. Instead of just this one lone white guy that inspired everybody.
I think that makes more sense for like a futuristic movie anyway.
Yeah, it does.
Excuse me. So anyway, and I'm not picking on John Wayne and all. I'm sure he's a nice person in real life, but that's just the way Hollywood was. They had a different mindset in the 40s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, and stuff like that. And so it eventually started changing. They started integrating more, which would make sense. And it just was a hit.
Yeah.
But anyway, getting back to the westerns in space, Gene Roddenberry didn't want it to be a bang cowboy John Wayne in space, like lasers instead. And
I would have loved that myself. If you had Wagon Train to the Stars, that would have been fascinating.
that was the term they used, wagon train to the stars.
Yes,
And
yes.
he decided, no, I don't want to do that. So I think in his case it was a good business move to integrate stuff and tell real stories instead of just your typical.
Because I would have loved it if they had all been robots in space attacking the Enterprise. Like, I was destroying those alien robots. It's a wagon train to the stars.
Use
Use
that, get on camera.
Wouldn't that have been fascinating? And more giant aliens with firing lasers from their eyes, trying to destroy the. More lasers. More XT beam. I would have loved that.
Okay, let's see if we can think of a modern song. Tell me if you know this song here. You recognize it?
No.
No.
Give you a hint. Hannah Montana. That's not the name of the song.
Whoa.
It went by real fast.
Is it Hannah Montana or Miley Cyrus?
Miley Cyrus. Here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My piano version. Wrecking Ball.
Yeah. We only have 20 minutes left. I was just checking the time.
Well, actually, less than
That's good.
that.
Yeah. But we start
We'll be winding
11:50.
down in about 15 minutes. But see, time just, I told you this was going to go by real
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
We got about 15 minutes left.
Just
Anyway,
briefly.
that was Wrecking Ball. Go ahead.
Just briefly, do you mind if we talk about Mr. Rogers'
No, we're
neighborhood?
going to get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, just brief.
Now, remember when we talked about Westerns in the
Mm-hmm.
60s? Now, for children, they had a slew of
Yes.
children's shows, and one was called Captain Kangaroo.
Mhm.
It had a theme that went like this. Oh, let me do it again. Hold on, I'm sorry. You don't know that one, obviously.
No.
Well, Captain Kangaroo was this actor that wore this sort of like a captain's outfit, I guess. And he had a sidekick named Mr. Green Jeans,
Mhm.
and they had this little set, like a
Yeah.
barn or a farm is the way to
Yeah.
describe it. And they would just teach little children stuff, math, history, science, you know,
Mhm.
the easy stuff,
Yeah.
arithmetic, whatever. And then they had another children's show called Sherry Lewis and Lamb Chop. And she had three characters, Lamb Chop, Charlie Horse, and Hush Puppy.
Don't remember that one.
Hush Puppy was like this little dog. It was like this. She was a ventriloquist, so she would like put these little sock characters on.
Mm-hmm.
And Lamb Chop had like these little ears, little sock. And then all the other ones, Charlie Horse. Charlie Horse is like a horse, and they were. She was a ventriloquist with the sock characters, and Lamb Chop. And then they had another children's show called Howdy Doody.
Mm-hmm.
It had a theme song that went like this. Let's see if you know it.
I barely remember Captain Kangaroo. I think I saw one or two, but I don't remember Howdy Doody or Lamb Chop. Interesting.
This is a Howdy Doody. I'll do it again.
Wasn't it a character that went Howdy Doody?
Yeah.
Maybe I barely remember. I don't know. Was it a man or was it a Muppet? I can't remember what Howdy Doody was.
Howdy Doody was his puppet. He had
Okay.
red hair and had like spots, like these freckles on his face, and he wore like this farmer's outfit. And the actor that played Buffalo Bob Smith, he wore like this kind of cowboy, Roy Rogers kind of cowboy, but it was a children's show. So it was Buffalo Bob Smith and Howdy Doody and Sherry Lewis and Lamb Chop, Charlie Horse and Hush Puppy, Captain Kangaroo. But of all the children's show, this one here was probably the most famous. That's why we decided to put ourselves on the backdrop here.
Yeah.
This is Mr. Rogers and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and of course you would probably know that because they had it on PBS
Yeah.
for a lot of years. But Im and I are old enough when it was on regular television.
Yeah.
I've seen many episodes as a kid, yeah.
Yeah, and what was interesting about Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood is they had these topics like self-esteem for children, and just those kind of, like how to forgive, love, you know, those kind of things. And share your candy or your food or your lunch. You know, just those fun topics. And that's why we decided to put ourselves on this set here.
Yeah.
And this king, this is King Friday. King Friday ruled this kingdom here. And he ruled the human subjects as well as the puppet subjects. But King Friday never did any of the work. Everybody else would think up everything and do the work, or King Friday would tell them what to do, and then King Friday would take the credit for it. You know how kings are. But so you've never seen any of these children's shows, have you?
I don't think so, no.
Probably not, because they ended like what, in the 70s?
Yeah.
Mid 70s.
You know, this is probably for the television audience. You're probably not going to be very happy with me. I saw many episodes of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. I was not a big fan. of
Really?
it. Yeah. I'll tell you why. Thing is, I've seen child psychologists when I was a kid. Mr. Rogers always came across to me as a child psychologist, and one that was condescending. You know, won't you be my neighbor? He even dressed like a child psychologist, and let's feed the fish in my doctor's office, and let's welcome the other guest who is developing pain. And now that you're in my doctor's office, I'm Dr. Dr. Rogers. Let's feed the fish, and let's talk to you about
I know,
your
but they're
problems.
top. Yeah, I know. Well, that was just.
And then play with these toys to talk about it. I always thought that he was going to prescribe the kids medications.
No, he wouldn't. No.
It just came across a condescending way, like that smile. I'm the doctor. Let's talk to you about your problems, because I went through through that. Maybe it's a personal bias because I went through all that.
Well, I had to kind of defend him because you have to remember each one of these children's shows had to have their unique style so that it could stick out. Mm-hmm. And so that was his, but it
was kind of more gentle, and a lot of kids loved it. Was he a child psychologist, or was he a minister? I couldn't...
No, he was an ordained minister. So he took his biblical concepts and applied it to this show.
He was I thought he was a...
Yeah, he was an ordained minister, but he had to do it where it wasn't preachy.
Because
that's probably why he has that persona there.
Because he always came across to me as I always thought he was a child psychologist.
He may have had some child psychology background.
Yeah.
It was more the Christian input, but they couldn't mention Jesus necessarily, you know.
I think it would have been better, better context for me, because he dressed like a child psychologist, acted like one, had to smile like one, and it just kind of gave me the creeps. Like, who is this guy? I don't want to be in his office.
If you look back in history, his legacy is probably going to be the most remembered.
Probably
all of those children's shows.
That's probably true.
Think about it. So
it wasn't a terrible show. I didn't hate the show.
It was a good show. It was really good.
I didn't hate the show. It's just I think I read somewhere he wasn't a Methodist minister. He was an ordained minister in a church, but
I think it might have been either the Methodist or the Presbyterian.
Yeah,
church.
Either one, and that kind of surprised me. But yeah, it was just one of those things. I didn't hate the show. I saw it a lot, but it's like one of those things. I preferred Sesame Street. That was my show in the old days.
You mentioned Sesame Street. That
I loved. The old one, I was one of the first Sesame Street kids in the 70s, the early 70s, 73, 75. I love Sesame Street was much more my flavor. I just loved my day. My mother told me that my day would not go right if I missed Sesame Street. I loved it that much.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah.
And I think Sesame Street probably might be the longest running.
It is. I think it began in the late 60s.
But I would say that Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood will probably even be more remembered than Sesame Street because it just I don't know how to explain it. There was something about that legacy. And they got Daniel's, that cartoon, the tiger, Daniel's Neighborhood. That's based off of this.
I did not know that.
Yeah, Daniel's Neighborhood. If you watch at the beginning, it's the exact same theme song.
Whoa!
It's just they don't have Mr. Rogers in front of the camera. They use like those words and that music. They might change a few words, but Daniel's Neighborhood is based off Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, so that's going to cause this legacy to be remembered. I think more too as history, because they don't really do much children's television shows like this anymore.
I know. They do a lot. They did for a while do a wonderful television in the few minutes that we have called Sprout TV. Now it's Universal Kids, and unfortunately in the evening it's more geared for older children with kind of boring stuff about school and competition and sports. But
they have to make it more relevant to today's times. Like the topics they talk about in the shows probably wouldn't be relevant for today.
Yeah, Sprout TV just a few years ago, I at first thought it was about gardening. I didn't know because on my new cable, I thought I like gardening. So I turned on 103 and Sprout, and it was about all for little toddlers. And I thought, what is up with this? And they had they still have Caillou, which I love. But they had Poppycat and Thomas and Friends and Stella and Sam and Poppy, and just over and running over and over in a loop, and I loved it. Like Caillou is more of a modern cartoon. I think it was from France or Canada, about a 4-year-old, a bald 4-year-old named Caillou who explores the world around him. I think it's an adorable cartoon where he meets with other kids at play school and has best friends like Leo, and they play dinosaur, they play spaceship. And it is kind of educational. They teach about sharing and taking turns and that kind of thing. And it never gets dire. The most dire it ever gets is where Leo broke his toe one time when they were playing Space Alien. But it's just adorable and it's sweet. It makes you feel good. It's just one of the most brilliant children's shows I've ever seen.
Oh, really?
Even as an adult, I love it. They were just for 5 minutes long. Like Caillou plays, with his friends, trying to make up a game. Clementine and by the way, it is intercultural. They have African Americans, Asians, just playing with each other. No races, just brilliant. Clementine wanted to play bears one time at play school, and Xavier, who's an adorable kid, wanted to play spaceships, and Caillou was kind of stuck in the middle, so they finally had a game where bears and spaceships were involved, where they went to another planet that had bears on it. Oh, it was just adorable. Just cute and adorable, you know. Totally innocent. Everyone likes each other and gets along. I think it must be a parallel of Earth. It can't be anything else, because nobody's that nice to each other on planet Earth. It's just a nice cartoon. Some episodes are better than others. I didn't like the one about the subway. There was one they went to the subway. I think subways are dangerous, you know, that kind of thing. And I don't know, but most of the time they're fascinating, so just wonderful. That's the new children's cartoons coming out now that I like.
I think it's crazy how much children's shows have changed.
They have changed.
Yeah, they've changed from these. That was the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. It's changed from this era right here.
Yeah,
it was a different time set.
Yeah, it was.
Children's shows are not likely to tell you how to share your toys or something like that. You know.
Even Caillou did that one time. There was a small one. It had that theme in it, saying they were invited to Clementine's birthday party, and they were picking out toys for Clementine, and Leo and Caillou. Leo said, if it were my birthday, I'd like that toy. It's a spaceship, space rocket with astronauts and everything, and Caillou and Leo had a little bit of money each, so they put together enough money to buy one rocket ship to share, and they lived in different houses. Okay. So Caillou would have it one day, and Leo would have it the other, and they were best friends. They really loved each other, but they always took turns, and then somehow they were playing with the rocket ship at Caillou's house, and Caillou's baby sister, Rosie, got a hold of the rocket ship and started drawing crayons on it, and they were both upset. And then they started getting mad at each other just when it's time to go to Clementine's birthday party, and neither of them were having a good time because they were angry that they're blaming each other for getting the rocket ship ruined. Caillou's mommy had cleaned it up, gave it back to them, but they realized, you know what? Leo said, you know what, Caillou, you can take the rocket ship. And Caillou said, well, don't you like it anymore? And Leo said, you know, I do, but, it's making us mad at each other, and I don't like that. And Caillou said, well, I don't like it either. What should we do? Who should take the rocket ship? They both gave it to Clementine, and they put their arms around each other, and the narrator said, they both realized their friendship is more important than a toy rocket ship.
Any more of that secret ingredient there?
Afraid not.
Okay, well, I'm going to get some more for the next show. We're almost out of time. Let me play one last song. Tell me if you know this one.
All right.
You know this one? I know you know this one, Emmett.
Painted Black. Yeah.
Here's the middle part. Done this song. I'm gonna stop right there.
What other songs do you know?
Well, I know a whole bunch of songs, but I'm trying to update my repertoire to make it more relevant for people in your generation and stuff. You gotta remember, I'm getting old. I'm gonna be 59 next week.
And I'm going to be 50 in 2 months.
So I'm approaching a big 6-0.
Yeah.
You know what I feel like? I wish I could slow the clock down and go back about 30 years, but unfortunately it doesn't work that way. But anyway, we're almost out of time. You guys, first I want to thank you both for being part of the Mr. Rogers neighborhood on Asaph Cafe. You know, when I was a kid and used to watch him, I never thought that one day I'd have my own show where we'd have Mr. Rogers in the background. You got any final words you want to say?
Just thanks for having me on the show. It was fun.
It was just the concept of the show. It's not a scripted show. It's not planned. It's just impromptu. You just talk to me as I play the piano about whatever you want to talk about. And of course, I didn't do much piano playing in this episode, but when we first did this, we used to have like real food and stuff. And it just got too messy for the studio, and we had to stop. And Grease would get inside the piano, you know, like when they have pizza.
Oh, Grease would get inside the piano, a fascinating theorem.
Right, and one other final thing, you're familiar with Eddie Murphy, the comedian? Now, I don't know, did you ever see him when he was young on Saturday Night Live?
I didn't know.
Well, back in those days, because, Saturday Night Live is like almost 50 years old now.
Mm-hmm.
They, when a young Eddie Murphy was on, he would be Mr. Rogers. But instead of it being Mr. Rogers, it was Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood. And so he'd wear like the sweater, but it'd be kind of like run down. And he'd be in this rundown neighborhood, this rundown house. Hi, boys and girls. This is Mr. Robinson. Can you say eviction notice? Because the landlord is going to kick me out if I don't pay my rent. It was it was that kind of humor. And then the landlord would be knocking on the door. Okay, Mr. Robinson, knock, open up. We know you're in there.
Yeah.
And then he would look at the camera.
Yeah.
Like kind of like how Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
He says, "Watch me escape, boys and girls, as I hide from the landlord." And it was just so funny how only Saturday Night Live can think that stuff up, And so Mr. Robinson, instead of Mr. Rogers, they call him Mr. Robinson. He'd sneak off, and the landlord couldn't find him. It was just hilarious.
A parody of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Yeah,
Interesting,
Yeah, it was a parody. And you never learned anything on Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood. It was just always in trouble with the landlord.
Yeah.
Just fun. But that's Saturday Night Live.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, you have any final words you want to say, like I was saying? Well, it was fun having you on, and now you're associated with this studio. Now you can add this as part of your experience, because there's other producers that have their shows.
Mm-hmm.
Mine's is more.
Yeah.
What is it? Family.
Oriented.
Comedy
Fun. Yeah, definitely.
Now Emmett's is more serious.
Oh,
He has,
The Awful Truth About Society.
Yeah.
At 10:30. Yeah.
Yeah, and he just talks about the
Politics and religion and the evils of society that I hate.
And so it's a different format.
So all the bad stuff happens.
Yeah. And I try and give solutions. Yeah, I used to be a punk rocker, so I gave solutions from a punk rock point of view and said, punk rock, if you be a punk rocker, a great way to reject society, which it still is, but I just can't slam dance, so I'm no longer a punk rocker.
That was 20 years ago, too. So.
Yeah.
But, he's got the #1 show on MCAT. Emmett does. And I really respect what he does. I think it's cool that he'll talk about topics.
Yeah.
Like, for example, something like this is crude, but like, how if you want to take a Bible to school, you'd be able to.
Yeah, exactly.
Those kind of things.
Exactly.
Or his could be more intense, but it just gives you an idea.
Yeah, exactly.
And whereas this show is just.
Exactly.
Just talk.
Mm-hmm.
Just goofy talk. And we've talked about some crazy things on this show, not just Star Trek,
Mm-hmm.
Like that time when we had that guy on that wanted to be Wonder Woman. Do you remember that episode?
Vaguely.
Well, it was like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
We're in our third year now at the cafe. Yeah, there was a guy on there, and the topic came up, if you could be a superhero, who would you be? And he chose Wonder Woman.
Amazing.
That was in our earlier podcast before we went green screen. So I better say goodbye and sign off, and what I want you guys to do is just don't move until I shut everything down.
All right.
So I am Asaph Adonai. This is Asaph Cafe, and we're in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. And our guest is Mr. Briar Hill, who's an associate at the MCAT studio. Did I say that right?
Yep.
And affectionately aging rocker Emmett. So I guess until our next show, Maranatha. And I always freeze right there. Well, make yourselves at home till I shut everything down.